Well, the virus has now killed more than 100 people in China, and new cases have been confirmed around the world.
So you don't want to frighten the American public.
France and South Korea have also got evacuation plans.
But you need to prepare for and assume
strongly warning Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China.
That this is going to be a real serious problem.
France, Australia, Canada, the US, Singapore, Cambodia, Vietnam, the list goes on.
Health officials are investigating more than 100 possible cases in the US.
Germany, a man has contracted the virus.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Japan, where a bus driver contracted the virus.
Coronavirus has killed more than 100 people there and infected more than 4,500.
We have to prepare for the worst, always, because if you don't and the worst happens.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
I call on every leader of every nation to start by doing what America has done, to simply insist on reciprocity, to insist on transparency and accountability from the Chinese Communist Party. When it comes to the CCP, I say we must distrust and verify.
The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, there at the Nixon Presidential Library yesterday. Today is Friday, July the 24th, the year of our Lord 2020. You're in the War Room with Jack Maxey, special guest in studio, Jack Posobiec from One American News, Raheem Kassam, and Stephen K. Bannon joining us on the line on America's Voice.News, the John Fredericks Radio Network, Newsmax, and blown through the CCP's firewall by G News and GTV, subtitled in Mandarin. Episode 297 starts now. Stephen K. Bannon, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, historic day in a historic location. Secretary of State Pompeo goes and gives the fourth of the series of speeches that really lay out, I think, the war plan on information, technological, and even potentially the containment of kinetic war against the Chinese Communist Party. Of course, people like Richard Haas, head blew up, and he said yesterday, I don't understand why these people keep saying CCP, Chinese Communist Party, like that's something separate than the country of China. You're seeing the establishment already in meltdown about this policy of President Trump that's now fully going in place, and I think it actually needs to be ratcheted up tremendously. I think we need to hear from the Secretary of Treasury. But today, I want to take our time, Raheem. We got Jack Posobiec, Steve Cortez later to talk about this atrocity that took place in Chicago last night, the dead of night, when they took out the Columbus statue. We'll have Cortez live from Chicago. We're trying to get Bill Gertz. I think Bill Gertz is the only reporter traveling with the Secretary. He was there live yesterday. I don't know if we have Gertz or not.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we do. Steve, we have Bill.
Hey, Bill, so listen, I know you're jammed for time. You guys are getting ready to take off, but walk us through, put us in the audience yesterday there with Secretary Pompeo. What was the reaction to the speech? I want to know, you've been doing this for 30 years. I'd like to hear your perspective of this kind of this amazing speech at the Nixon Library yesterday.
Yeah, Steve, this was, I've been covering this issue for over 30 years, and this was the most important, significant speech by a senior U.S. leader since Nixon went to China back in the 70s. Very appropriate that they had this speech right up to the line calling for regime change in Beijing, but basically saying, look, we've got to change the Communist Party of China. Otherwise, there cannot be normal relations between the United States and the free world. He laid down a marker like I hadn't seen in decades, and I think it's extremely significant that we're moving forward with really putting ultimate pressure on what the military calls the center of gravity for the Cold War with China, which is the Communist Party of China.
Bill, you say, I want to go back to that term, regime change. What I found most powerful about this is that he was talking to of all the audiences, his primary audience to me seemed like not policymakers in Washington, not the guys on Wall Street, not their cheerleaders and their lobbyists and the people who have kept them in power, their business partners, and not even the American people. The American people were a significant audience. The most important audience he was talking to was the Chinese people. He essentially told the Chinese people, hey, we're here as your partners. Things have got to change, and the only way real change is going to come about is not just this alliance of democracy, but it's in the Chinese people's hands to actually make the changes that he talked about. He didn't, which I thought was brilliant. He didn't call for regime change like the U.S. government would not call for that. He called for the Chinese people to have regime change, and the rest of the world would be there for him. Is that your take?
Yeah, I think that's key. I think the strategy, he basically laid out the strategy, which is following on the Soviet model of perestroika and glasnost. Get some transparency, get some real information, get the Chinese people speaking, and they'll get rid of the Communist Party, which is universally hated within China. And I think he ended his speech by saying, God bless America, God bless the Chinese people. So he was clearly speaking abroad. Another key point factor he talked about there was he said the current Chinese leadership does not speak with one voice. That was a clear recognition that there are fissures within the ruling Communist Party of China. And he was saying our new strategy is, look, we're going to reach out to the Chinese people. We're going to demand transparency. We're going to get information there. We're going to get reciprocity. So I think it's a very good strategy. Let's hope that they follow through with it with some real action. I think the closing of this consulate in Houston was important. Like you said, where's Mnuchin? Let's get the Treasury Secretary out on board with this new strategy.
Look, I want to go back to that before we lose you, but he talked about at the beginning, set it up about this was the fourth of the speeches that he had worked with O'Brien and Ray and Barr to go through the different aspects of it. He actually said Barr's was the economic speech. Where's the hammer we have? The biggest hammer we have is our capital markets, our ability to finance the U.S. dollar, everything that comes from the financial superpower that we are. Where is the Secretary of Treasury bill, and what do you think Mnuchin has to do now when we've got a clearly laid out, coherent strategy about taking these guys on? Do you think this is going to a forcing function? This speech is a forcing function to force Mnuchin to start to step up here and take the actions that the Treasury Department clearly has to take and has to break off from their Wall Street cronies?
Well, the word I hear from inside the administration is that Mnuchin has been slow rolling a lot of the major financial actions that have been taken. That said, the Trump administration has done some amazing things, sanctioning foreign Chinese officials for human rights violations. I think they need to do it in a much more comprehensive way, and again, that's going to require getting Mnuchin more on board. The way it shakes down is that the debate is still underway within certain factions of the Trump administration that, like Mnuchin, who would prefer to see go back to the old unfettered engagement, economic engagement with China, and hope that that is going to change it. I think Pompeo was absolutely clear yesterday. Engagement has failed. It was based on a false hope that this idea of trading and conciliatory policies was going to change the system over there, and it's time for the new approach. And I think, as you said, we got to get the Treasury Department on board. I think Wilbur Ross has been successful at commerce. He's very strong on China, but again, Treasury has a lot more hammers that it can use against the CCP.
I thought Hugh Hewitt did particularly a good job on the Q&A. I know Hugh's the president of the Nixon Library. It was I thought, a very bold move to invite Pompeo out to give the speech in the kind of the 50th year anniversary of Kissinger's secret trip, and in 2 years will be the 50th anniversary of President Nixon's historic trip. What was it like being there at the Nixon Library when you really have a speech by Secretary of State that is a kind of counter, because Nixon opened up China. Now, he brought the points about change, that China has to change. And he had that magnificent quote of President Nixon's about, we may have created a Frankenstein. But what was the sense of the audience out there who I knew are some of the biggest donors and biggest supporters of the legacy of Richard Nixon?
It was very, 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 very supportive. On several occasions, there were universal applause from the audience. And there were probably about 150, 200 people there. Again, everybody was spread out, but I thought that it was well received. Again, it was very poignant that at the beginning of the engagement policy was Nixon, and now Pompeo's announcing the end of engagement at the same location.
Bill, I want to thank you. Your reporting has been magnificent. I think you're the only reporter out there with the Secretary of State's party. So look forward to hearing from you when you get back.
Thanks, Steve.
Bill Gertz from the Washington Times, I think the most dialed-in guy on reporting on China. Raheem, Jack Posobiec, Jack Maxey, give me your thoughts, your observations.
Maxey, you look like you're ready to go.
Well, I think it's probably one of the most historic speeches in foreign policy in the modern era, Steve. I can't imagine anybody laying down harder than he did. I thought it was wonderful that he seemed to pair many of the ideas that we've been talking about on this show, that this is about the Chinese Communist Party, that it is not about the Chinese people, that the CCP does not represent the nation, and we have to start understanding that they are not like other nations. I don't think there's any turning back, Steve. I think that the road has been laid before us, and there's nothing we can do but either follow it or fail.
Posobiec.
What you saw with Pompeo, he's very smart, actually, to go to the Richard Nixon Presidential Library, because what it represented was a shift, a turning point in America's relationship with China. America's relationship with China has always been framed since that initial trip of Kissinger and then Nixon later Nixon goes to China. That had always framed American-Chinese relations, which had started, of course, during the Cold War. We were exacerbating the Sino-Soviet split. We were using them to our advantage against the Soviets in the Cold War. Going there yesterday, as he did, the Secretary of State, he labeled them the new tyranny, and he was effectively declaring, and I think the symbolism was clear, that this was a split from that phase of the relationship, and now they are the new tyranny. Those were the words of the Secretary of State yesterday in Yorba Linda.
I was impressed, by the way, guys, with the specificity as well in the strokes. He talked about specific things, and Jack, I think in terms of him echoing some of the things that we've raised here as well, it was quite clear. I mean, one of these quotes, he says, "We opened our arms to Chinese citizens only to see the Chinese Communist Party exploit our free and open society. China sent propagandists into our press conferences, our research centers, our high schools, our colleges, and even into our PTA meetings." Steve, that's a direct shot at the Confucius Institutes, is it not?
Confucius Institute and also many others. I mean, Mike Pompeo, we'll get into this in the next couple of segments, but Mike Pompeo really laid down not just a marker, he had specificity. And what I loved about it, it focused on the Chinese Communist Party. It's no more kind of broad talks about China or the Chinese people. You've identified the enemy, which is always the one of the most important things you can do in a war, is identify exactly who the enemy is. He's drilled down on this, and as you said at the beginning, or Gert said, he also talked about the potential for reformers or potential for allies inside the apparatus, right, in this takedown. This was not, I think it's viewed as or he kind of laid out a little bit as, hey, we contained the Soviet Union because they weren't inside the wire. He made that comment in the speech that these guys are already inside the system. They're inside a wire, so a containment strategy is not going to work. That means, when he says change, that means that we win, you lose. And the people to do that, the instrument to do that is the Chinese people. It's their freedom that everybody is fighting for. So I thought it was a magnificent at the overall architecture of it. And then when you get down to the specificity of identifying the bad guys, identifying what's going on here, I thought it was quite stunning.
We've got about a minute here in this segment. Jack, I wanted to ask you, the Secretary of State said, quote, "A good example is Huawei. We stopped pretending Huawei is an innocent telecommunications company that's just showing up to make sure you can talk to your friends. We've called it what it is, a true national security threat, and we've taken action accordingly." When is the rest of the world going to start taking action accordingly for firms like Huawei?
Well, I think we're already starting to see that, of course, in the UK, that we've already started to see the separation. The Polish Prime Minister actually just penned a long missive about Huawei and their actions in the CEE, Central and Eastern Europe. You're starting to see the U.S. really reassert itself in this role where it lain dormant for so long, really during the Bush-Obama eras of this sort of, America's in decline, we're going to let China expand. Now they're reasserting it.
When we come back, Steve, I want to talk to you about this trap that Secretary Pompeo was talking about, and also this international alliance. He mentioned the new alliance of democracies. He said it's difficult for some small countries. They fear being picked off. Let's get the responses from the team here on what we think can be done. Hashtag War Room Pandemic. Want your views? We'll be right back.
Everyone loves the benefits of compression socks, but they're just so hard to get on. Until now. Introducing the all-new Copperfit Energy Socks, redesigned for the first ever easy on, easy off fit to help reduce swelling, relieve tired, achy muscles, and provide energizing support. A new blend of stretch fabric for the most comfortable, easy on, easy off compression fit.
Being a SWAT commander, we train to win. The Copperfit Energy Socks, they didn't feel like other compression socks. They totally exceeded my expectations.
Our most powerful copper-infused fabric, woven into our easy-on, easy-off compression sock to help reduce swelling discomfort from prolonged sitting or standing.
I'm 38 and a half weeks pregnant. Copperfit Energy Socks worked beautifully.
Extra support around the arch and ankles for increased support and relief of muscle aches and pains.
I'm so excited about these socks. I'm so much more energized to go do things after a day of work. They just slip right on, yet they still have that same compression that you want.
A soft cushion footbed for all-day comfort.
I'm on my feet at least 9 to 10 hours a day. These were fantastic. A lot of compression socks are a little too thin, especially for what I do. With Copperfit, I could wear these every day.
Feel more energized. Feel more active. Just feel better.
They just hug your leg. It relieves all the pressure that you have. I have so much energy, I can go, hey, you want to dance?
The first ever easy on, easy off compression sock. The most comfortable compression sock you will ever wear. Get your Copperfit Energy Socks now online at GetEnergySocks.com for only $19.99 or call 1-800-978-1224. Order right now and we'll include a second pair of compression socks free.
I've never felt anything like it before.
No more pain, no more swelling, no more achy, tired feet.
I can never go back to regular compression socks again.
Don't settle for ordinary. Ask for the original by name, Copperfit Energy Socks.
I sent your new prescription to the pharmacy.
Any idea how much it will cost?
You have a choice. Insurance or GoodRx?
I have insurance.
Insurance is not what it used to be. People struggle to get their prescriptions covered, and prices keep rising. I recommend GoodRx. You get free coupons to save on your prescriptions. Compare prices to find the best discounts.
GoodRx. Smart.
Stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today.
These are our classes, our happy hours, our dates, our birthday parties, our shopping. We are learning new things.
Nice technique with that knife.
And getting in touch with things we left behind. These are our lives now. Come be a part of it online. GoDaddy is making it possible for everyone to create a website for free. Learn more at GoDaddy.com.
War Room. Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room. Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, in turbulent times, you need to take action, and this is a very turbulent time. NetSuite by Oracle is sponsor of this show. NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. If you want to get yourself a free guide, 7 actions businesses need to take, and a free product tour, go to netsuite.com/Bannon. You're back in the War Room, Friday, July the 24th, 2020. Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, Raheem Kassam. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Yeah, let's play that. I think we've got Dana Bash at CNN. If we have that teed up, can we play that clip?
Let's roll it.
Communicated to the president that his opponent is not Joe Biden, it is the coronavirus. And in the past couple of days, he finally realized that the coronavirus is beating him, and beating him badly. And there is nothing that he could do except for change course tactically, rhetorically. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind here. And it all falls under the umbrella of the fact that his opponent is the coronavirus is winning, and that is largely because he completely, mostly ignored it.
Steve?
Yeah, I want to go back to the China in a second, but listen, particularly for some of the audience out there, people saying, oh, you should drop pandemic, you should go to 2020. This is 2020. You got to listen up. This is what we've been talking about for months and months and months. And the president right now, it's not about rhetoric. It's about action, action, action. You got to take hard action. You got to have these briefings. You got to take action. Dana Bash is absolutely correct. I actually would argue that he's in a primary right now with the pandemic. And those voices around him that argued months ago this was going to go away and you're going to transition to greatness just were absolutely dead wrong. And now you're in the situation you're in. The pandemic and the situation with the Chinese Communist Party are all folded into one. The path to victory goes right through Beijing. They're responsible for this. They have to be held accountable. Every one of your major department heads now has come out and laid down a absolutely coherent strategy. And you're starting to hear the whining already. The Jeff Bezos Amazon Washington Post editorial today is in full high dudgeon, right? Oh, this is terrible. He's got an incoherent plan. All these voices from Richard Haas, the Council of Foreign Relations, to the op-ed, to the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal, to the editorial page of the Washington Post, all of it, right, that have been in bed with the Chinese Communist Party for decades are not going to see this plan. You need to drop the hammer now. You can drop one hammer and start to take care of this pandemic and start to take care of Beijing. And that is, we need to find the source of the pandemic. Until we, right now we don't have enough therapeutics. There's all these questions, and Jack, you've done a great job on hydroxychloroquine and all these other therapeutics. We don't know if we're close to a vaccine or not. I happen to argue that I think we're a ways away from a vaccine, a long way away. We know the Chinese are trying to hack everywhere to try to get it. It's incumbent, I think, upon the president and administration to demand from Beijing 72 hours you turn over all the information to our team of coming in, or we're cutting you off from the U.S. dollar. The Treasury Department has got to stop playing footsie with the Chinese Communist Party and their lobbyists on Wall Street. Attorney General Barr the other day laid out this whole unregistered foreign agents, specifically called out companies as collaborators and used the word appeasement. It's very evident who is focused on this, the American people. The American people understand that the Chinese Communist Party did this to the country. And the president, I think, has to awaken the fact they did it to him and his administration. Whether it came out of a biological weapons lab, whether it's part of a program, whether it came out of the Wuhan lab, we know for a fact the chain of title on their decisions from late December of 2019 exacerbated this and caused the carnage we have. And so I think that's why Pompeo's speech yesterday gives a pathway of how to do this. And I think that, Raheem, I'd like you to read that part, or we can play that part about the Thucydides trap. It's something we've talked about where Pompeo totally dismisses this issue of inevitability.
Just before, I just want to hold you to something on that topic, because a lot of people will hear the messenger in somebody like Dana Bash and dismiss it outright. But what we're specifically talking about here is turning the tank around. When it comes to the Republican National Convention being canceled, this is the sign, right? This is the sign that the president now recognizes that, as you say, he is in a primary with the pandemic. That was the key thing yesterday in the president's press conference, was it not?
Yeah, that, and also I think up on Capitol Hill, what's happening on this relief package. Remember, you had this $1 trillion that McConnell was working on. He had the $3.2 trillion that Nancy Pelosi's already put forward. That middle ground was a whole package of things that President Trump and his allies were working on, everywhere from a payroll tax cut to other aspects of Buy American and other aspects of this. That was completely, essentially dismissed by the Republican Party. I mean, somebody in the White House ought to understand that doesn't exactly look like you got fire-breathing support on Capitol Hill about what your program is. And as we're seeing the economic data, we'll ask Steve Cortez in the next segment a little bit at this. The jobs claims and the economy, I think, are starting to look very iffy, particularly as we're coming to another cliff. And so the question gets to be your support. And people are looking at what you're doing on the pandemic. The path to victory here is addressing this pandemic, as we've already said, because it is a pandemic, and it was started by the Chinese Communist Party. The White House has not held them accountable. It's time you must hold them accountable for what they did to their own people, what they did to the citizens of the United States, what they did to all mankind. And oh, by the way, as a sidebar, what they did to your administration and what they did to the president personally. They want to take Trump out. They realized Trump was a new sheriff in town, and now they see with O'Brien and Wray and Barr and Pompeo exactly the reason they want to take him out, because they want the voice of the editorial page of the Washington Post. They want the Amazon Jeff Bezos. They want that, okay? They want Richard Haas. Richard Haas has the audacity to say that how can these people talk about Chinese Communist Party? That's how you know he's listening to War Room Pandemic. How can they say Chinese Communist Party like it's something separate than China? Sir, it's totally separate than China. This shows, once again, your incredible ignorance about what reality is there. The Chinese Communist Party is a small clique of people in a nation of hardworking folks, 1.4 billion, that is a totalitarian dictatorship, okay? Oppressive. But that mentality is what Beijing wants to go back to. I happen to believe we've changed the American people now are united in wanting to do this. I think it's going to take, and it has to take leadership from the White House. Number one, you've got to get the Treasury Department to be just as tough as the FBI Director Wray and Attorney General Barr. And number two, you have to give an ultimatum to Beijing, okay? An ultimatum to Beijing. You either come forward with all the information, we're tired of the games, and we don't want to hear you guys come up with some quote-unquote vaccine in the next 45 days and think we're going to kowtow to you because you know what the original genetic code of this was from the beginning, and you lied to everybody about it. It's time to hold them accountable. The only person that can do that is the President of the United States. The only place it can be done is from the White House. That has to happen because Dana Bash is 100% correct. And if the deplorables don't like that, that's just part of living. You're going to have to embrace it because that's reality. Back to you guys.
Steve, let me bring you in on this one now. Look, the Secretary of State yesterday said changing the CCP's behavior cannot be the mission of the Chinese people alone. Free nations have to work to defend freedom. And he says, I have faith because the CCP is repeating some of the same mistakes that the Soviet Union made, alienating potential allies, breaking trust at home and abroad, rejecting property rights and predictable rule of law. And then he says this, which reminded me of Stephen K. Bannon. He said, look, I reject the notion that we're living in an age of inevitability, that some trap is preordained, that CCP supremacy is the future. Our approach isn't destined to fail because America is in decline. As I said in Munich earlier this year, the free world is still winning. We just need to believe it and know it and be proud of it. People from all over the world still want to come to open societies. They come here to study. They come here to work. They come here to build a life for their families. They're not desperate to settle in China. Steve, what is this trap that's preordained that he's talking about?
The Thucydides trap. This is this whole construct that Henry Kissinger, Graham Allison, and others have come up with. It kind of dovetails where we were in the Cold War before Ronald Reagan, a new sheriff in town, showed up that said, hey, we win, they lose. They're an evil empire. They've got to come down. Before that, under Carter and Ford, there was all this, rapprochement, détente. We had to get along with the Soviets because they were the rising power, we're the declining power. It's about the Peloponnesian War, Athens and Sparta. And it's just dead wrong. Remember, he also put up inevitability. The most powerful thing Donald Trump said in this entire time of this pandemic, nothing is inevitable. Human action and human agency are going to guide our destiny. That's the underpinnings of the Judeo-Christian West. That's the underpinnings of self-reliance and liberty. And that's what Pompeo is saying. Don't believe that we're destined to do this, that they're the rising power. They're going to be the new hegemon. And as a junior power, we can kind of nudge them to be better. Okay, that's not true. We're actually winning. The biggest mistake Hillary Clinton and her team made is to buy into this managed decline of the United States of America. Donald Trump was a voice, a fresh voice that said we're not in decline, and these are the actions we have to take to reverse the decline. Well, right now, to reverse this showdown, we've got to hold Beijing accountable. Now is the time to do it. You can't happy talk it. You can't spin it. This is about action, action, action. And you've got to take this action. Hold these people accountable for what they've done to the citizens, the 140,000 plus that we have dead, and the hundreds of thousands that are going to come in the future. The blood is on the hand of the leadership in Beijing. They have to be held accountable. And I think Pompeo laid it out incredibly eloquently that this is not inevitable. We can turn this. We're not in some predestined decline, that our own actions can do it.
Yeah. We have to break here, Steve. I got to get a buzzer. The buzzer's in Steve's pocket whenever we're going to break. Stephen K. Bannon, Jack Posobiec, Jack Maxey, returning in just a second with Steve Cortez with the latest from Chicago, and we'll get into this Alliance of Democracies, too, in just a second.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha. The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness. During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the Night Bright button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage-eating critters or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars with laser illumination technology for just $39.99. You'll also get a protective carrying case, yours free. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling atomic beam flashlight, just pay separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-788-1008. That's 1-800-788-1008. Or visit bynighthero.com. That's bynighthero.com. Order now.
Frustrated with heavy rubber hoses that always get tangled and easily kink? Introducing the Bionic Flex Pro hose, the super strong, super tough hose that's ultra light as well. Run over an ordinary hose and it'll easily burst, but the Bionic Flex Pro hose stays intact no matter what runs over it, because its reinforced drag-resistant commercial-grade outer polyester weave makes it tougher and stronger than ever. And its solid brass fittings are crush-proof too. Ordinary hoses kink easily and stop working, but the Bionic Flex Pro hose never kinks. It just keeps flowing strong. And while regular hoses easily get tangled, the Bionic Flex Pro hose is tangle-proof. You can get the 25-foot Bionic Flex Pro hose for just $19.95 with free shipping. But wait, order today and we'll upgrade your order to a 50-foot Bionic Flex Pro hose. Just pay a separate fee, and shipping is still free. Go now.
Call 1-800-313-8062.
I'm Nick Bolton, and these days...
Hey there.
Hey there. It seems everybody has a pair of tactical sunglasses.
Good morning.
Morning. But what if you already wear glasses? Then you need these flip-up tack glasses. These new glasses fit right over your existing eyewear to give you all the benefits of our tack glasses while you comfortably wear your regular glasses. Plus, like all tack glasses, flip-up tack glasses feature Bell & Howell light filtering technology that makes invisible objects suddenly become visible. There's just nothing like them on the market today. Here you go, buddy.
Thanks, Nick.
Act now to get your flip-up tack glasses for just $19.99, and we'll even ship them to you free. But wait, order today and you can get a second pair. Just pay a separate fee. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-284-4127 or go to flipupglasses.com. That's 1-800-284-4127 or order online at flipupglasses.com.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back to the War Room. Friday, July 24th, the year of our Lord 2020. And 2020 has been a gut punch to American business. If you're going to succeed, you need every possible advantage. NetSuite by Oracle is the world's #1 cloud business system. And smart companies run on NetSuite because it gives you visibility and control over your financials, your HR, inventory, e-commerce, everything you need, all in one place. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in sales, NetSuite lets you manage every penny with precision. You have the agility to compete with anyone from anywhere and run your whole company right from your phone. So join over 20,000 companies who trust NetSuite to make it happen for them. They surveyed hundreds of business leaders and assembled a playbook of the top strategies they're using as America reopens for business. So go to netsuite.com/Bannon, get your free guide, 7 actions businesses need to take now. A free guide and free product tour, netsuite.com/Bannon. Speaking of which, over back to Stephen K. Bannon.
Thanks, Raheem. Look, the reason we do this show and about the pandemic, we said it triggered an economic crisis, a financial crisis on top of that. Now we're in the middle of a geopolitical crisis with the existential threat that is the Chinese Communist Party. We bring in one of our regulars, Steve Cortez. And look, Steve's known as one of the voices of MAGA, one of the first guys to do it. We bring him in all the time because he's one of the smartest guys on Wall Street. Today, for 2 different reasons, I want to get him in. One is to hear your thoughts, Steve, on this tremendous speech by Secretary Pompeo at the Nixon Library. And then I want to talk to you. You've been like a Old Testament prophet on talking about what was going to happen in Chicago 2 months ago when we had you on pandemic talking about the economics. Let's go to Pompeo first. Give us your sense of where do you put this as important for direction of the Trump administration?
Right. Listen, I think it was just a towering and powerful address. It was really Reagan-esque. He was at the Nixon Library, but not very far from the Reagan Library. And the reason I say it's Reagan-esque is he said to the country and to the world, in the same way that Reagan said it in the 1980s, he said, we're not going to just contain communism. In the case of Reagan, it was communism in the USSR. He said, we are going to transcend communism. And it was a very similar message from Secretary Pompeo. He said either, and he said this very clearly, either the CCP is going to reform itself, or we, the United States, cannot coexist with that evil regime. It was also a very specific and individual indictment of Xi, which I thought was very interesting. I'll give you a quote here from Pompeo. He said Xi is a, quote, true believer in a bankrupt totalitarian ideology. So it was a powerful verbal indictment of the entire Chinese Communist Party and of Xi individually. This is exactly the kind of cohesive approach that we need from Donald Trump. And I believe that one of the reasons we're going to win in November is the American people know, they know it in their hearts and their minds, that the predicament we are in right now in this country because of this virus is all the fault of the Chinese Communist Party, and the leader to take on the CCP for the next 4 years is not Beijing Biden, not by any stretch. The powerful leader to transcend the Chinese Communist Party is Donald Trump.
Really powerfully said. Jack Posobiec and Raheem, Jack Maxey, I want you to jump in here with Cortez. But Steve, you said, 3 months ago that Chicago was a powder keg and going to explode. If we're sitting there saying that we're transcending communism internationally against our greatest existential threat, the Chinese Communist Party, how are we going? I think a lot of people are questioning, hey, are we going to transcend cultural Marxism and communism here in the United States first?
Right.
Talk to us about Chicago. It was so disappointing to see them in the dead of night. Given, if you saw those brave police officers defend that statue last week, what happened in Chicago, you called this months ago. Give us your perspective.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, there was just an absolute betrayal overnight in Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot, who is a feckless leader of this city, I hesitate to even use the word leader, quite frankly, to describe her. But Mayor Lightfoot, in the dead of night, under the cover of darkness, removed the Christopher Columbus statue from Grant Park. 1 week ago today, a lot of brave cops defended that statue. And I think this is a betrayal on two fronts. First, I'll deal with the cops. 1 week ago today, a lot of cops were in, quite frankly, a pitched battle. If you look at the video of that, I mean, this was an absolute street brawl. Now, the cops won, thankfully, but they paid a price. 18 cops went to the ER, some of them with very serious injuries, but they preserved the rule of law, and they showed the mob that the mob cannot do whatever it wants and inflict its will upon us, and that in the United States, in a democracy, in a civilized republic, we believe in politics through persuasion, not political power through force. Unfortunately, and then this is the second betrayal, by giving in to them, by caving to the mob, what we are really doing, unfortunately, is emboldening a movement that is echoing, back to China, that is echoing the Maoist cultural revolution. We have seen this throughout history, where unfortunately radical leftists want to literally erase the history and culture and values of a society so that a state-controlled culture can be put in its place. In the case of China, it's the Chinese Communist Party. In the case of these leftists in the United States, unfortunately, they are very much the shock troops of the Democratic Party. And I don't believe it's an exaggeration to say that. But we will not allow this in this country. We will not channel Pol Pot. It is not year zero, okay? America has a glorious history, and we have a wonderful story to tell. Now, that doesn't mean the story is without problems. It doesn't mean it's without some very significant failings, such as slavery. But we can be adults. We can be free citizens of the greatest republic in the history of the world, and we can look at our history in its totality, and we can deal with the complicated nature of history and the complicated nature of a man like Christopher Columbus, who was a bold and brave and amazing man. A man with faults, clearly. But the way that we deal with him is to talk about and learn about Christopher Columbus and not to demand that his statue be removed and that we try to erase the history and culture of our people. So the cops I've talked to, and I know a lot of Chicago cops, they are irate about this because they believe they put their bodies on the line a week ago to defend the rule of law. It was more than just a statue, of course, to defend the principle of the rule of law. And then in the dead of night, Mayor Lightfoot sends city workers there to skulk and take away the statue. You know, my mother used to tell me when I was a teenager, nothing good happens after midnight. Unfortunately, that's very true in the city of Chicago. Nothing good happened after midnight. Something really shameful happened in this city.
Is President Trump correct in saying he wants to flood the zone with federal agents and more DOJ people into Chicago? Can the local authorities not handle the crime? I mean, every week it's like Baghdad or Kabul with the killings and the shootings and the young people. What's exactly going on? Is President Trump correct in taking the action that he's demanding?
Yes, listen, this is strong action from President Trump to help the people of Chicago, because just because we have, a feckless and corrupt leadership, unfortunately, here in the city of Chicago, doesn't mean that we should be abandoned by our federal government. We are American citizens. And I say this, Steve, as somebody, I've raised my family in the city of Chicago. I have lived here for the last 25 years. And my warning to the country, I've talked about this a lot, I've written articles about it. The left wants to take America in the future to where Chicago is right now, a place of danger and deprivation. And I am warning, as a Chicagoan, I am trying to warn the country. We do not want to go there. You do not want to be Chicago. I say this with no glee at all. Unfortunately, my city has become a third world-like existence, a place of extremely wealthy elites who generally live near the lakefront, and then impoverished masses, a place of danger and depravity. And that is because of failed leadership. The Democratic Party has been in charge of my city completely for nearly a century. Chicago is the warning. It is the canary in the mine warning America that we cannot pursue leftist policies. But back to President Trump and this action, I think this is critical. And again, the cops I talked to are thrilled. Of course they want the help. And here's part of why they need it. There are terrible prosecutors all across America, many of them backed by George Soros, many of them financed by far left radical money. One of them is State's Attorney Kim Foxx here in Cook County, Illinois. She is literally not prosecuting some of the rioters who attacked police. These people were arrested, charged, and she is refusing to prosecute them. So one of the reasons, it's not just that we need federal agents. That's going to be very helpful. But I think even more than that, we need federal prosecutions where we know that the U.S. attorneys in cities like Chicago will take their role seriously and will slam these rioters, these violent ne'er-do-well nihilists, with serious penalties for their crimes.
Raheem, back to you.
Yeah, Jack, I want to get you in on this because you've been following this extremely closely. What Steve is talking about here, what is a lot of people look at this and they say, okay, we understand who the bad guys are in these scenarios, but we don't necessarily understand. I mean, I didn't necessarily understand even yesterday when we had Governor Greitens here. What's the solution to getting rid of these people?
Right, and so that's actually where, if you go back to the very start of all of this, you had AG Barr coming forward and talking about utilizing and mobilizing those joint terrorism task forces that are in every major city in the United States and getting them to actually start doing the law enforcement work, the logistic work, the intelligence work of putting together cases on these individuals to, as the term we used to use in the intel community, is disrupt these networks. And if you don't disrupt the networks, then you're going to see what's going on in Portland now for 57 nights in a row.
But I mean, specifically with these Democrats, whether they are the Soros-backed attorneys general, or the mayors, whatever it is. Here's my query and concern is that if you have to have the federal government come in and clean up these messes, number one, it undermines localism as a concept, as a federalism as a concept, and number two, it's letting them off because they're going to keep their jobs. The place is going to get cleaned up, and are they going to get unelected next time around?
Well, and that's the bigger issue, right? Now we're starting to see that with, at least in St. Louis, where Kim Gardner is potentially coming up against that because now the Attorney General there is looking at potentially investigating her or at least getting involved in that case. Because of her malfeasance, she should step down easily.
Guys, let me just jump in. Cortez, this is the point that the guys are making. In Chicago, are we seeing a unique, you've got out of control crime and people being gunned down every weekend by just bad guys. Now it seems like you've also got the cultural Marxist Antifa Black Lives Matter part. Is Chicago showing us the convergence of both forces, and how do you combat that? Is that a federal problem? Is Raheem right? Are you bailing out these incompetents at the local level to do it? Because Chicago, to me, seems like the convergence of both forces: out of control, law and order, disorder, and also anarchy by the anarchists.
Right. No, Steve, I think you're exactly correct. We see, unfortunately, the confluence of sort of regular street crime that is out of control, and also then this ideologically driven violence that we see from the far left nihilists. And unfortunately, they're converging in Chicago. And here's what my answer, though, would be to Raheem. I am totally sympathetic with your view. I'm a federalist, right? I don't believe in an overarching federal government and an intervention into levels of street crime. However, I would say in this case, and maybe part of this is colored by the fact that I live in the city of Chicago, the situation is so dire and it is so dangerous that I think, unfortunately, we cannot default to sort of theoretical principles in this case. There is a practical reality on the ground, which is that people are not safe. Children are not going outside. Their mothers are worried about them being in the street after 7 p.m. This is no way to live in America. Again, Chicago has become, unfortunately, a third world-like reality in the middle of America. And while I defer to federalism generally, I say right now, the people of Chicago, we need federal intervention because our local government, city and state, our local governments have completely failed in the first and foremost mission of government, which is to secure the peace of the public safety of the citizens, of their persons and property. That is failed in the city of Chicago, and it's a pathetic failure. I wish it weren't the case. I wish we didn't need that kind of federal help, but we do.
Steve and Steve, Jack and Jack, just hold on. We'll be right back. More War Room Pandemic. Hashtag War Room Pandemic is the hashtag on Parler, on Twitter. We're following you in the live chat now, studying your comments very closely. We want to understand what you guys think and how you guys think we can take these nasties on. We'll be right back.
Brett Favre, legendary quarterback. Jerry Rice, legendary wide receiver.
You ready for your weekly meeting?
Yeah, we're ready.
Let's do this. Let's stack the deck.
When legends play, they wear Copperfit Advanced Back Pro. Copperfit's best-selling compression back support just got better with new double-band adjustable supports for customizable compression when you need it most.
Since I put this on, I feel so much better. The core is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
To know that I'm stabilized here. Whatever I'm doing, I can give it 100%.
4 built-in stabilizing supports designed to improve posture and help reduce lower back stress and strain.
You have back pain, and it's affecting your everyday life. You do something.
If you can find something to help you get back out and be active like Copperfit, go for it.
Absolutely.
Do not give up.
A high-performance compression fabric infused with the powerful properties of copper, 360-degree flexible mobility, and lightweight, durable construction.
Nothing more painful than having back pains. If you're aching, if you feel like you can't work out anymore, you can. And that's with Copperfit.
Yeah. It's for all of us who still want to be active, still want to compete.
Way to go. That's what I'm talking about. Man, this really does feel good. It feels to me like the fountain of youth.
Copperfit's best-selling back support just got bigger, badder, and better. Or call 1-800-944-5851. Or on the web at advancedbackpro.com. Get yours now for only $19.99.
This does feel good.
That's what I've been saying.
You think it was fair?
It was fun.
Play for the love of the game.
Copperfit, live limitless.
Windshields are impossible to clean, and a dirty windshield can be downright dangerous. Introducing the Hurricane Windshield Wizard, the one tool that reaches and cleans for you. It uses the power of microfiber with a pivoting head to make cleaning windshields quick and easy. The specially designed ergonomic handle fills with tap water and dispenses at the touch of a button, so you can clean in seconds without straining, and it folds away for space-saving storage. Order now and get the Hurricane Windshield Wizard with free extra bonnet for just $19.99. But order now and you can double the offer. Plus, you can also get the Battle Visor, the visor that blocks the harsh glaring sun and keeps you safe on the road. Just pay a separate fee, and we'll ship everything to you for free. That means you can get all this and free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-474-7530 or visit GetWindshieldWizard.com. So call 1-800-474-7530 now.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we got a lot more to go through in this show and in the next hour as well, so stick around. Hashtag War and Pandemic to have your say. Got Jack Posobiec, One American News, in studio here. Jack Maxey, as ever. And shout out to our excellent production staff, producer Vish, and the rest of the team. I want to throw it back over to Stephen K. Bannon and Steve Cortez now. Steve?
Okay, well, we got Cortez for a few more minutes. Look, Steve, you've been like an Old Testament prophet of telling us the direction of Chicago. You know, walk us through what's going to happen, because it's very confusing what the school system's going to do, the economy, particularly for young men. You got now the convergence of Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and this street crime. What is the future for Chicago, particularly in the short term, when we, normally the Cubs, the White Sox, and the Bears would all be playing at one time in September and October, or at least September. You're not gonna see this. What's going to happen in Chicago?
Right. Well, listen, I wish I hadn't been as prophetic as I've been about Chicago. But when I looked at the situation, I said what you have, unfortunately, because of the virus, are a lot of young men with nothing to do, a lot of idle young men in the city without school, sports, or work. Unfortunately, going forward for Chicago, that's going to persist. And let me talk to the school part specifically. The Chicago Public Schools are only going to do school 2 days a week. They're going to take half the kids on 2 days. They're going to do a cleaning day on Wednesday, the other half on Thursday and Friday. For juniors and seniors in high school, they are not going to school at all. It's going to be 100% remote learning. We also know, by the way, from the spring when this was going on, according to the Chicago Sun-Times, 1/4 of high school students did not check in at all, not once, never logged in, never attended virtually anything. So we know, okay, that there are going to be legions of young men, again, in this city with nothing to do and without sports perhaps as well. The Chicago Youth Football League, TCYFL it's called, the largest youth football league in America, has canceled its entire season. We don't know yet about high school sports, but there is talk that it will be canceled as well. So I have to tell you, unfortunately, I'm extremely worried. When we have a bunch of idle young men, that is a powder keg, unfortunately. Now, there is some good news, and part of the good news is what President Trump's doing in terms of federal law enforcement help. What I would also encourage him to do, education is primarily, of course, a state and local issue. However, the federal government has enormous influence through the power of the purse. And I would really encourage him as quickly as possible to try to force these localities, if they are not going to have in-person school, let's free up the money. Instead of giving these funds to a corrupt system that is dominated by teachers' unions who do not have the best interests of students and parents at heart, instead, let's give the money directly, even if it's just for this year. Give that money directly to the parents so that they can decide private school options, homeschool options, online, whatever they choose to do. Let's empower them. That to me, would be a huge benefit to people all across America, but particularly parents in places like the city of Chicago.
Steve, thank you very much for joining us. You're one of the strongest voices out there, not just in the Trump movement, I think explaining what's going on and putting it in a perspective that people can understand. So I really appreciate it. I know the show is a huge hit. Can you give people access to your Twitter, your online presence, and also the show?
You bet. Yeah, please follow me at Cortez Steve, Cortez with an S, and I'm also the host of the Steve Cortez Show on AM 560 in Chicago, but you can stream it anywhere, 560theanswer.com, 5 to 7 p.m. Central Time every night.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Posobiec, Maxey, Raheem, pretty bleak outlook for Chicago. I want to go back to Jack Posobiec for a second. Jack, you've been out there. You followed this. Is what Cortez is outlining in Chicago correct? Well, tell me, what are the federal agents if they go out there, and what are the different prosecutors? They sound like kind of a tiger team that's going to go out there. What do you anticipate will happen, and do you think they can actually get in back of the violence, the mayhem, and the anarchy?
Well, Steve, I hope that is what goes on. And remember, of course, Chicago did also live through it, suffered, but did survive the Summer of Rage of 1968. At a very similar, time in our country's history. If you look at some of the building blocks there that led to that, what's going on out in these cities, not just Chicago directly, but you're seeing a real step up by the Department of Homeland Security. But what I'm hearing from on the ground is that the Department of Justice is not quite there yet in terms of what they're providing in terms of proactive defensive. Obviously, the defense of the facilities is under the margin of the authorities of the DHS, but in terms of the prosecutions, in terms of the arrest, in terms of charges, and actually bringing these people to court, that all is going to go through the U.S. attorneys. And what are you seeing the U.S. attorney in Oregon doing? He is launching an IG investigation of the DHS employees that are out there, the federal agents. And so you're seeing in some cases now a mismatch between DOJ and DHS out there. Hopefully that's something that Barr can work on.
Tell me about these, the big controversy. I know you guys have talked about it before, but this whole thing about the uniforms and the uniforms they're wearing and the markings on it. Can you give us some definitive comments and analysis about what's really happening there? Because the left's picking this up as like it's Trump's personal army.
Yeah, well, actually, the director of CBP came out, Mark Morgan came out a couple of days ago and did a fantastic press conference where it looked like a kindergarten classroom. I've got a 2-year-old son. He's watching YouTube videos all the time. And he puts the patches up on the board for all these reporters in the room and is walking them through just giant blow-ups of these things. Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, all right, U.S. Border Patrol. And then he said they're not using their name tape, right? Name tape on a uniform, but what they've got is unique identifiers. Why is that? Because members of Antifa were coming out and doxing the families of these officers, the families of these agents, these police officers. And remember, they're civilian law enforcement. These guys are not military troops. There's been talk about that, but these guys are not National Guard. They're not military. They're civilian police officers at the federal level going out there and doing this. And so the idea that they were unmarked, yes, of course, law enforcement uses unmarked vehicles. I don't think that's really breaking news, but they were fully marked, each with their badge number identifiable if you understand how to read a uniform.
Well, guys, we've got to go to a break here. We've got to go to a break here. We'll be back in the next hour with more War Room Pandemic. Episode 298 begins in just a second, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to get you some breaking news as well. We know that China has ordered the shutting of the Chengdu consulate in retaliation for Houston. We'll get into that. The UC Davis cancer researcher suspected of being a clandestine member of the Chinese military was sought refuge in the San Francisco consulate and now appears to have left and been arrested. And of course, we can't forget this breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. And let's get this up on screen right here as we go out. The pitch of the season. Dr. Anthony Fauci is on target with his pitch as he spin with his coronavirus claims. We'll be right back. More War Room Pandemic in just a second.
Uh-oh, there you go. Slow slicing fruits, veggies, and those stingy onions that bring you to tears. But not anymore. Introducing NutriChopper, the compact handheld speed slicer that cuts up to 10 times quicker than a knife. Watch. You can have 1 slice or 10 perfect slices at once. Amazing! You can just julienne, or you can bundle slice julienne sticks at lightning speed. With NutriChopper, you can slice the entire onion or mince a mound of onions and never have time for tears. Why slice a single apple wedge when you can wedge it all in one snap? NutriChopper comes with the razor-sharp interchangeable stainless steel blades you need to make all of the cuts you want and all incredibly quick. Chop thick slices, chop thin slices, chop cubes, chop sticks, and wedge whole fruits and vegetables in just 1 second. Slice it and cook it right in the pan, right on your stove. Chop and slice right into the pot for a family-sized stew with no mess. Snap and slice a fruit salad for the kids right into the bowl in seconds. Slice up a healthy salad for a quick and easy meal on the go. Cube meats and cheeses quick, in a snap. And NutriChopper comes with a perfect portion container and fresh keeping lid so you can slice it, seal it, and store it all in one. To clean, simply rinse or rack it in the dishwasher. Then lock it to store it safely in a drawer. And now the NutriChopper with the thin slice, thick slice, wedge, and cube blades, and the slice and store container and lid, a value of over $40, is yours for just $19.99. But wait! Order now and we'll even pay the shipping for you. You get the complete NutriChopper set with blades and container with lids, all for just $19.99 with free shipping. Here's how to order.
To order, call 1-800-927-4071 or go online at NutriChopper.com. That's